So the first thing we're going to do is make a copy so we don't ruin what we have, right? We're going to make a copy and start adding color to it, and if we feel like we messed up completely, we can always go back to the original and make another copy. So don't destroy all your good black and white work. So File, Save As. Save As makes a copy. And I'll call mine, like I want you to title yours, last name, Still Life, color, project 2, save as Photoshop, and save. That's okay. And now we've got a copy, so we can't hurt our original black and white painting. So basically, I'm always going to add a new layer, right? A new layer, so we're not painting on our old layers. So the first one, I'm going to call orange color. Okay? And this time I'm going to change the layer mode where it says normal with this layer selected. Instead, I'm going to change it to color. So it's essentially we're going to colorize our oranges with the local color orange. There's going to be a lot of dramatic darks and lights and probably other reflective colors showing, and this is just a starting point. Okay, so when we select the layer mode color, then basically it colorizes the object as we pick a color. So I'm going to mix a color orange. I already did. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'll hit OK. And I'm going to select a brush. And I'm going to make a pretty big brush size. And I'm going to make it 100% opaque. And the brush I'm choosing is the hard round brush. Okay? At 100% opacity. And I'm just going to paint over the oranges. Okay, so we've got that basic color applied over our value underpainting. So already, you see some volume, but it does kind of look like one of those colorized old black and white movies right now. So there's a lot more we're going to add to make it more three-dimensional and accurate to our observed color. So now we're going to make a separate layer for the apples. I'll call that one apple color. And I'm going to make that layer mode also, instead of normal, color down at the bottom for the layer modes. And then I'm going to make a red color. I'm looking at my actual apple to kind of duplicate the color. I guess I'll start there. Let's see how that goes. Make sure that you're on the right layer. Now we're going to add another layer. Banana color and color mode. Color. So now we are going to add another layer. Grapes color, and we're going to make it layer mode color. Okay, now I'm going to apply color to the box. Add a layer, box, color. Using the polygonal lasso again. This time I'm going to save my selections. Select, save selection, and I can call it top front box. So I can call that up again later instead of making it again. Next, table. Okay, so next I'm going into the background. I'm going to make a new layer. And I'll call it top background, so I won't be confused with the original background layer that Photoshop has. And I think I'm going to go ahead and paint this one not using the color mode, using the normal mode and using an opaque color, and that way I can use that color to go in and help define the edges of the fruit. So in real life, you saw my junky living room is in the background. So I'm gonna just kind of arbitrarily pick a color, and I think I see like a kind of a muted blue color for the background. Okay, this will be a good starting point anyway. And I'm going to mask things off on the straight edges just so I keep those good. So now I'm going to make a new layer. I'll call it top background darker. With darker paint, I'm going to select the soft round brush, make it big. I'm going to make it very transparent, the 12% opacity, and then I'm just going to try to go over the edges here. And by the way, you can do that a different way also. I'm going to save so I can revert back to this. So, okay, now back to here. If you have that same color, I'll sample it. Instead of making the darker color, what you can do is you can make your layer multiply, and it multiplies the color. So that way, if you go over your color, then I'm actually painting with the same color as this, but every time I go over it, it gets a little darker. Okay, I actually like that better. I was going to revert back to the other one, but I think I'm going to leave this one. So I'm using multiply with the same color. Now I can already tell I want the color in the background to be more grayed out and a lot darker than it is right now. So I'm going to merge this one, layer, merge down, and it merges with the top background layer. And then I can use image adjustments like we did with black and white, and I'm going to adjust the value. I'll start with the brightness and contrast, and I'm just going to, what happens if I reduce the brightness a lot? And let's see about the contrast. Kind of like that. And remember, I'm making up the background, because what I really have is a bunch of junk from my living room. And I don't think I'm going to do this, but since I talked about multiply, I also want to talk about if we make a new layer and we make it screen, then that lightens the color. So I can take the color, I'll sample this blue, and just because it's on a screen layer, then just like multiply darkens the more you go over it, screen lightens the more you go over it, right? So you can introduce a little bit of luminosity to it. And I could adjust the opacity if I wanted to blend it and keep this. It's given me some ideas for later, but I don't want to keep that. But I just wanted to let you know, screen lightens things, like multiply darkens things. But generally speaking, you're going to want to use layer normal and just mix the colors yourself, because you don't want to just stick to darker and lighter versions of the same color. Fit on screen and select, deselect. And essentially I've applied all the basic color. So now I'm going to build up different tones and things that are beyond the local color. For instance, looking at my orange in real life, I see that it's reflecting a lot into the banana, and there's a lot of orange color in this side of the banana. So I'm going to start painting in, and I'm making a new layer, and I'll call this one Banana Reflection. And feel free to have as many different layers as you want. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's good to keep them separate so you have individual control over the layers. And again, I'm going to make it really semi-transparent. I'm at 12% still, and paint it in the paint. And I think I'm going to keep it hard round so I see the strokes. So I'm on the banana reflection layer, and I'm going to make an orange color. Let's see. I could sample the same orange color, but it looks a little bit more reddish, reddish brown. Okay. So this observational color is from the specific circumstances. And I'm darkening the areas around the shadows, and I'm darkening the areas around here. And I even see like a little hint, can make the brush big, of the orange like over here. And I can cover it up and minimize it by sampling the yellow and painting back over it with that. But do you see that? So that's not local color, that's color that's reflected from the orange in this specific situation. I even see some color over here that's similar to the orange reflected from the table. That's already looking a little three-dimensional, right? Then I'm going to go over to the blue range a little bit, and I'm still painting really subtly. I don't even know if I can use this, but what I'm looking for, I'm going to make it really transparent, barely there, because I want to, in the shadows, I want to introduce like a kind of a hint of blue. Which I see in real life. And just this once, I think I'll switch to a soft round so it blends in a little bit better. Again, I'm going back to the yellow. I'm covering it up so it's subtle. So look, already just those blues, the reflections of the oranges, and the reflections of the table there give it a little bit of a three-dimensional quality, right? It's still yellow, but it has a bunch of other stuff in it too. And I'm going to sample the yellow, and I'm going to move it to the greenish and a little darker. And again, I'm painting still with super transparent brush, but I'm going to make this greenish, which again, that's what it looks like in real life. Next, I'm going to add a new layer, leaving it on normal also. The rest of these will all be normal layer mode. And I'll call this orange more. So I think I'm going to try making a brownish color for this. Brown is a dark orange. And again, I'm making my brush hard round, small, and very transparent. And I'm going to try to build up some darker shadows over here. And brown color, like the table. And I'll also introduce those colors a little bit heavier into this area. Maybe emphasize this and this. Just emphasizing some of the areas that have already been captured by the value painting. And again, I'm painting with a very semi-transparent brush with a brown that is reflective of the table. And I'm probably going to make the table darker too. I will go ahead and add some of that to this orange too while I'm at it. And again, darker around the edges here. And you also see some light areas here where the light is bouncing off the table. So again, just carefully observe what you actually are seeing. I see kind of a reddish color too inside of the orange. So this one especially. But this will do a couple of things. It'll give it a little bit of an interesting little bounce if it works, and it'll also tie together with the apples, whose local color is red. So let's see how that goes. Okay, and last, I'm going to go into a blue shadow area. Some of the strokes show through. And I'm overdoing it because it's on a separate layer, and I can take it down. But when I'm looking at this side of the orange, it's very dark. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is make it darker and then more transparent. I'll do brightness and contrast again and just reduce the brightness. So it's like super dark. Okay. And then reduce the opacity so it's more transparent. Apples, more. And the first thing I see with the apples is there's a yellow top. Actually, I'm going to sample that. Go back to the hard round. And this apple up here has a little of that too. I'm going to make the brush really little. And I'm going to erase, tiny eraser. So get the stem. Now the thing I see also is darker, bluer shadows on the apples. So I think that's a little too much. So what I want to do is I actually want to make it darker and less blue. So let's do image adjustments, brightness and contrast, and let's bring it down so it's darker. Actually, maybe if I just make it a little more transparent, I can leave the blue. Doesn't quite blend in. I think what I'm going to do is image adjustments. Hue and saturation. Hue and saturation has the three components of color. Hue, what color it is, saturation, how saturated it is, and lightness and darkness value. So I'm going to move the hue, actually I'm going to move the saturation down so it's getting more grayed out. Hit OK. Okay, now before I paint in the details, I'm going to make the inside of the box darker, I'm going to make the table darker, and the grapes a lot darker. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is the details. I'm going to put them all in one layer. I'll just call it details. So now I think it's pretty good. I don't like the background. Now that I can see it with the rest, that color is really wrong for it. So what color is right? I'm going to load my selection mask for the side again, left side of the box. Okay. Then I'm going to do select inverse to select the opposite. Select inverse. So that way I can not paint in the box, I can paint in everything else. Sample here, and I'm going to give it a little bit of illumination to separate it from here. Make the brush big, but I'll keep the opacity low. To see if it was working. I was having trouble seeing it. Okay, giving it a little bit of a glow, and then I'm going to erase around the apple. Clean up the apple part. Okay, that's pretty good. I can see I want this to be darker. And then one more thing, I'm going to hit adjustments. And when we make an adjustment layer and we don't clip it to a single layer, you can adjust for the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do brightness and contrast for the whole thing. And I'm going to see what happens if I bring down the brightness but increase the contrast slightly. Okay. So then when I go back to the layers, see here it is before and after. I think I like it a little bit more after. Also, of course, part of this assignment is careful observation of the light and the light source, and that would include whether it was a warm light or a cool light. Cool meaning bluish, warm meaning yellowish or orangish. And you also can add a photo filter. Here it is, the one with the little camera icon. If you click on that, here's a warming filter. Here is cyan, cooling filter, blue, right? So we can fake warm light or cool light using these photo filters. I'm going to see what it looks like with the warm light. I can increase the opacity of it. Here it is like 100%. So I kind of actually like that. Kind of brings it all together in terms of the color temperature, because the light is very warm that I'm using for reference. So go to layers, so here it is before and after, and that helps tie it together too. So never forget you can use all of the image adjustments to change things after the fact, and if you use adjustment layers, which are found under adjustments, and if you don't see that, window, adjustments, all of the panels are under window, and you can click on that little camera icon and you can try a warming filter, which you can control the intensity by adjusting the slider. Okay? So I'm going to say I'm done.